All right, guys. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Search and Seizure Show. It's December 6th, 2023. I am joined by my very esteemed colleague, John Ween. John, I always wonder if I butcher your name, by the way. I don't think did I butcher your name?
Got it, dead on.
Yeah, that's how you say it, right?
That's how I say it.
Because I sometimes want to say John Wine, because that's what you do. You whine a lot.
Right.
But
I am the problem child of the blue to gold team.
well, you're called a prima donna around here because your evals and so forth and your followings is kind of off the hook. People really do love you. So where are you at?
I'm in beautiful Bakersfield, California tonight.
Now, do you really mean that word beautiful?
I do. I enjoy California. Had a lot of fun out here, a lot of good times, met a lot of good officers, and we had a great time over the last couple of days.
I got to tell you something. I love teaching in California. And the reason I love teaching in California is only for two reasons. There's some things I don't like about California. Some of their, this show's not political, but there's two things I love about California. Number one is I love the weather. Love the weather. And especially for Southern California. And number two, I love their search and seizure laws. Would you agree with that?
I would. If you can construe your state constitution directly in line with the federal standard, it is much easier to go like this to policy than it is to go from federal to state to policy. Then you got to know three standards.
Yeah. Now, little trivia for you. Let's see if you know this. I think you will, but actually, I know you will. There are only two states in the union that have a constitutional amendment that says that you have to interpret your state constitution for search and seizure in the same manner as the Fourth Amendment. What states are those?
I'm going to drop the ball on this because I know California. The other escapes me.
Well, you should really be embarrassed. And the reason why is because you helped write the book.
Oh, no, I did. Florida.
Yeah. Florida. Now,
Wonderful.
Florida is a Fourth Amendment state, but, I do find, and maybe this is why you had a blank here, I do find that they are not as good as California on keeping it in line. Would you agree with that?
I would. Florida, by and large, I think that's also another great state. A lot of good police officers out there, absolutely pro law enforcement, as far as their government is concerned.
Absolutely.
Some difficult things out there. California needs to repeatedly recognize, right, that we are held to that standard, whereas Florida.
Some things with their canines, their canine case law is kind of goofy. Like they get overturned a little bit on canines and some other stuff. So, and then Jardines, that's a little bit different conversation. All right, Mark, we're gonna bring Mark on. So actually, we really should have Rick on here being our MC, but that's okay. Let me get Mark on here. 1 second here. Hold on, Mark. And actually, Mark, can you come online, Mark, with the mic? Because that's how this show is really supposed to work. It's just a little bit too long to do it this way. Mark,
are you able to hear me?
Hey, buddy, and just so you know, we can't see you. We can only hear you. That's the rules of engagement. And I just want to remind everybody that's here tonight that if you want to come on the mic, and you may know this already if you've been here before, but we love talking to people like yourself, like in person, like here, but we can't see you. So if you're picking your nose or anything like that, keep doing it and talk away, my friend. And also, please let us know what state you're in and if your agency, if possible, if you feel comfortable doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm out in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Nice. Oh, there you go. Okay. Just so you know, John is an Arizona lawyer and former cop in Arizona.
Yeah, I was able to attend his search seizure. It was awesome. So
that's awesome.
So the other night, I made a stop. There was a car failing to maintain lane. I go up to contact the driver. There's 3 occupants in the car. As I'm speaking to the driver, I can see signs of impairment. There's some stutter, some red shot. I call another officer to do some field tests, some sobriety field tests. As he's doing it, he concludes his investigation saying, hey, she's DUI, or the suspicion of DUI. And then she gets placed in the back of a patrol car. I'm standing by the other 2 occupants. One's in the front passenger seat, one's in the back. that pretty much concluded my traffic stop because they're like, hey, like the car's getting towed. So as soon as the front passenger exits, he grabs a bag, starts walking away. The back passenger grabs a backpack from the vehicle, walks away, and then an officer sees on the floorboard, front passenger floorboard, meth pipe attached to this like water bottle bong type, resembling drug paraphernalia. So we detained the two occupants because they just came from the vehicle, and so I think I'm pretty good to search the backpacks because they're containers from the vehicle, and I have probable cause for the vehicle because of the meth pipe. My question being, is that back passenger seat his person? Am I allowed to, like, I searched his bag, there was nothing in his backpack, but I don't know about his actual person.
Okay, so just before John answers this question, because I think he's, I want him to tee this up because he's definitely the, Arizona expert here. But so the paraphernalia was found in the front passenger,
Passenger floorboard.
and you're also referring to the rear passenger, searching the rear passenger, their bag and the person, right?
Correct.
Okay, John, you want to take a stab at this?
So driver's DUI. And we remove her from the vehicle. We got no indication of nervousness from anybody else inside the vehicle, no indication of active drug user lifestyle, no attempts at deception, nothing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Was the driver just I don't know if this helps or hurts John's equation here, or analysis, but was the driver DUI drugs or alcohol?
DUI drugs.
Okay. And were they was she? You said she, right? Was she related to anybody in the car, as far as just friends?
Just friends, from what they told me.
No boyfriend in the car.
Ex-boyfriend, back passenger.
Ex-boyfriend. Okay. So John, keep going.
Yeah. So, and I'd like to get your input on this too, Anthony, because this is fun, right? So I've got drugs inside the vehicle. And so that gives me probable cause to believe that there's additional evidence of the crime inside the vehicle, Carroll doctrine. So I can search anywhere inside the vehicle that could reasonably contain the evidence of the crime for which I have probable cause to believe is contained therein, right? And drugs,
Yep.
where can you hide drugs? You can hide drugs anywhere, right? And so now I've also got nexus to front seat passenger based on his location and proximity to the drug paraphernalia. And so, I'm good on him, good on his.
You're going to the back passenger based on the probable cause?
Well, the back passenger, I haven't got to the back passenger yet. Right?
Oh, you said the front passenger. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm saying, yeah, front passenger. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now, as far as my back passenger goes, this is, arguably kind of complicated, right? Because had he left the bag inside the car, that's a container inside the car. I'm good with it. Not operating under the realm of consent.
So what do you think about, just to kind of target this though, do you think it's going to matter to the court that potentially arguments that the PC came after the bags were removed and we no longer have the motor vehicle exception?
But they're recent occupants, aren't they?
I think so.
For them, I have PC
Yeah, and I'm
And so-
glad, but here's no, I agree, and a very realistic. But I'm also glad that the courts are giving some latitude here because I'm like, first of all, I've been teaching this, and
Mhm.
I've never had one case ever say that I'm right. I mean, I haven't found any case that said I'm wrong. So you know what I'm saying? But and also one thing we got to caution our viewers on: this Montana case is full of references to Montana constitutional case law, right? It's Montana is a more restrictive state than other states, and sometimes people don't realize that because Montana sounds very cowboy, but it is actually it's a little bit more aligned with New Mexico than it is Nevada. The Supreme Court says that curtilage is treated like the home itself.
Huh?
And now the person has expressly revoked their implied consent to be there, if we had it at all, by the way. But if they revoked their implied consent to be there, then you next need to transition into the whole, how am I going to stay here and override his rights? What gives me the authority? And that you better look for exigency.
Okay.
And by the way, the court said that. The court said you can articulate exigency, but the cop didn't.
Okay. Well, and so
Right.
Florida versus Hardeness, right? That supports this idea, right? Where and then there's
you say Jardines? What case are you referring to?
yeah, it's Florida versus Hardeness.
How you? What is that? A Supreme Court case?
Yeah, it's the same case that you call Jardines.
Don't be wise with me. Okay, don't be wise with me. Go on, my friend.
It means gardens in Spanish.
I love it. Go on. I love it. I know I've been saying that name incorrectly for the whole time, but I don't have your Latin flavor. So go on.
There you go. Little salsa, little spice.
I love it. Yep.
So yeah, I mean, we talk about this, it implied social license, right? And so if the person specifically says, get off my property, I mean, you've got a Nevada case on that, right? They go up, they're doing the knock and talk. The guy like looks out the window and is like, get off my property, and they don't, and that's an issue.
Oh, no,
right?
It's not Nevada.
That's
it's the First Circuit. It's the First Circuit.
I'm sorry. I thought it was Nevada.
Morel is Frank. No, the one where they're trying to arrest him, and oh no, you're saying, I'm sorry, I do have a Nevada case. I thought you wanted to go on. I have cases on it. Yeah.
And so here's the thing, right? And this is why I'm struggling with this Montana case, because if they're saying that I can go onto the yellow and walk up to him and say, hey, sir, are you all right? And he's like, screw you, get off my property. Can I grab him at that point? I've got PC for him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think that's not what happened here, but I think they would have to say yes, right? As long as you have lawful access. But here's the problem, Johnny. He's in the car. So you would be making another constitutional intrusion into the vehicle, and the motor vehicle exception doesn't apply. So you're not going to be able to, I don't think you're about to open his door and pull him out. I don't. But if he came out of the car.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, we're going down a rabbit hole, aren't we? Because am I still on a traffic stop?
Yeah, but no longer.
Versus Mims, give me the him out of the vehicle.
No. Negative. You're no longer gonna. Pennsylvania versus Mims no longer applies because you're on the man's home, right? So you're inside of his home. So if we are saying that curtilage is treated like the home itself, not the same, but like close enough for government work, and he says leave, then your Pennsylvania versus Mims whole de minimis, and it's not that big of a deal. It's just a little more intrusion than the original traffic stop. Doesn't apply because you're no longer lawfully present if you don't have exigency.
Is he required to identify himself to me?
No.
He's operating a motor vehicle, right?
I know. But the problem is you're back to Lang.
Sure.
If what you're saying works, then why can't you just go up to Lang inside his garage and do everything you're saying right now? Why can't
Well,
go ahead.
no, I'm saying it is different because he's in his garage in Lang. And so I'm
Yeah.
saying I agree. They're saying you can't walk up to the car and make contact with him. But Montana is saying in this case, you can walk up to the car and make contact with him.
Because I think the way I look at this is that curtilage is treated like the home itself. It's not the same. And I'm glad that they say this because, there are some instructors out there that literally say, if you're in their backyard, it's as if you're in their kitchen. Now, I don't believe that. I believe that there are plenty of times that cops have been in people's backyards where they could not have been in their bedroom, inside their home. And I do, and even though case law is a little fluctuating on this, but I used a loud party call. I think it's much easier constitutionally to be in a backyard that shut down a loud party than it is to be inside of an apartment shutting down a loud party. I think constitutionally, it's not the same analysis. It's the government intrusion is much more inside the home. So going back to this curtilage issue, yes, I mean it is their protected area. They told you to leave. You no longer have implied consent if you ever had to begin with, but I'm glad they gave it to them a little bit. You never had implied consent. I'm sorry, you had implied consent. Now you have revoked consent. Now you need to transition to a recognized exception, demanding their ID and trying to write them a ticket for no license being surrendered upon demand is not good enough. You need to go to the curb. I hate saying this, but this is what I think the law is. You need to go to the curb. You need to describe that person as best as possible in an arrest warrant and come back with your friends. Not come back, but invite your friends over, wait for that paper to be issued, and take them in custody. Well, look, that's what Montana's saying. So, I'm not saying that I'm right because Montana. First of all, we disagreed about a case the other day where the law was in your favor, which was that whole the case out of Connecticut. What about the gun case? What was that case? And somebody sent you a case that says I was wrong. Bullhorn was it?
Paul Ocean, Lincoln, Edward Robert, Polar.
And what was the principle? What was the principle of that case? It says
we're talking about the iPhone.
Oh, the iPhone. Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. Dude, I've been thinking about that case, that whole idea. I cannot, with a straight face, sell that, man. So that was the whole, holding your iPhone up to a tinted window and looking in it. And that is results-oriented judge right there. He just wanted that gun to come in that case. But look, here, I can see the logic, at least. They are actually pointing to Supreme Court precedent. And the other thing about this is that the court did say, that the cop did not give any articulation of impairment. Just kind of goes on about that, but it was only for speeding and pulling into the driveway, and failed to yield, did not demonstrate any exigent circumstances. And they concluded that it was an invasion of the person's privacy and their jardines. So I'm gonna have to go with it, man. It makes sense to me. I mean, and by the way, I think bring your wrecker and come onto this man's curtilage and hook up his car, or a car. I mean, I just don't see it. I don't see how they have the authority to do that, and I don't see any implied consent to invite third parties onto a person's curtilage to recover evidence against them. How do you respond to that, John?
Walk over and give me the hook. Hand it to me. I'll walk over and stick it on their car, and we'll rip that bastard out of here.
Man, this is why you're from Arizona, because you guys are the mecca of bad case law, because you got this cavalier cowboy attitude down there, and you're like, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? It's like you're legit, man. You're like the last known freaking wild earp around here.
I'm saying, Texas is my last bastion, man. I'm holding out hope for Texas. That's our last hope. That's our Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right? Look, I'm almost worried now. You're teaching. We're gonna get like a lawsuit. And like Johnny told me to call Billy Bob over. He's told me to hand him the hook. All right. So that question, we're good there. So finally, the cop did say, look, I work in a small town, 3,000 people, which is twice as many as Iowa. I work in 3,000 people. I don't have backup to help me out here. What am I to do? And I would advise that officer articulate exigency, I guess, right?
Yeah,
if you have a DUI, right? Because
absolutely.
So I think you're going to be okay.
And then
let's do one more.
Go ahead. Other than that, every one of your officers needs to know how to submit search warrant affidavits, and you need to wake your judges up all night long pursuing these.
I agree. Yeah,
Yep.
that's their job. Yeah, that's their job. Okay. We have a cop from Kern County, California. He talks about protective sweeps. Do they apply when you're outside the home? Can you actually enter a home and do a protective sweep? Briefly, John, he said, well, he actually wants to talk about this case called People versus Mac. It's a California Supreme Court case from 1980. And basically what happened there was the cops were investigating stolen property, and part of the stolen property, John, was like firearms. The people suspected being involved in a stolen property ring were highly violent. I think there was like 4 or 5 people involved in this ring. The cops went to the house, do like a knock and talk, and they start hearing, look out, the cops. A couple people came out. No, actually 5 males came out. No, 2 males. No. So 2 males saw the cops. They said, look out, the cops. And then they ducked back into the garage, heard some shuffling around and so forth. Eventually, after several minutes, 5 people came out, and the cops entered the garage to sweep it to make sure nobody's in there that could pose a danger. Violent people, guns, etc. Right? All this kind of suspiciousness before they entered. And the cop is like, look, when you teach protective sweeps, they're talking about our classes, right? When you teach protective sweeps, you don't really talk about entering homes. You talk about when you're inside of a home, and that is a classic, Maryland versus Bowie, Chimmel type of rationale for those people who care about case law names. But what about here, though? I mean, the cop is bringing up a very good point. Do we have the authority, if it's legit, and we do have, reasonable suspicion at least that there's a danger in that house? Do cops have the right to enter the home while they're making an arrest and so forth, or even investigation outside the home? Yes or no? Okay. And why?
Yes. And so basically, when we're looking at an analysis like this, it really helps to go to the Supreme Court's thought process, their analysis. Maryland versus Bowie is your case, right? And they say, as far as protective sweeps, you can search the immediate area contemporaneous to an in-home arrest, right? And why? Okay. Prevent the subject from gaining access to weapons, affecting means of escape, or destroying evidence, right? And then you can look in adjacent areas, those nearby areas from which an attack could be immediately sprung. You can look for people in people-sized places. And then if you can articulate the basis to believe that there are dangerous Confederates throughout the home, well, then you can look throughout the home looking for people in people-sized places, right? And so if I am making an arrest of a subject on the porch of a house, does the same rationale exist? Does the same danger exist to those officers if they are there on the front porch making an arrest, a known drug house, violent offenders, gang house, whatever it is? Does that same danger exist if those officers are out there making that arrest in the front yard, steps away from the front porch? The answer is absolutely, right? And there is a Texas case that is directly on point to this, where the officers.
Well, there might be a Supreme Court case that helps you too, not just Bowie.
Okay. Well,
does anybody in the chat know what case I'm referring to? There is a U.S. Supreme Court case that actually really kind of discusses cops entering a home during an investigation to sweep. They didn't use the word sweep, but to basically because of officer safety rationale.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking about? The one involving the school shooter?
Yep.
Do you remember
Let's
the
see if
name?
anybody else can get it though.
Yeah. Who gets this? Come on, Sean. I'm depending on you, by the way, as my search and seizure instructor. That there might be actually. I think Josh is here too. Is Josh here? Let's. It is ready for it. Can we tell it?
I'll give you a hint. You pull the guy over, he's got the gold paint all over his face and the sock. Psh. What's he doing?
Let me look. Huffner.
He's huffing. There
All
you
right.
go.
Huffington. Look, these guys are. You gave them a good clue, but they're not latching onto it. All right, give them the damn name.
It's Ryburn versus Huff.
Yep.
Ryburn versus Huff.
I'm looking for a quote from Ryburn, but it's not as directly on point as your Texas case, because that really is what they did in Texas. I mean, they went into the home, swept it, and all this kind of stuff. Ryburn is like, hey, this lady I think is going to go get a gun, and they went in there and followed her in there and confirmed that she was going to grab a gun, and they left. But would you agree though? It is a good Supreme Court case when talking about entering homes for officer safety. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I'll give you the quote if you want it. Blow your skirt out.
What is it?
If the officers have an objectively reasonable basis to believe that the threat of violence is imminent,
Nice.
make entry, right? And so, we talk about like officer safety. A lot of times officers go to officer safety. And I say, well, is there really a recognized exception for officer safety? The answer is no. What we have here is we have exigency. Exigency when there is an objectively reasonable basis to believe that violence is imminent. And so if you can tell me on it, then you are good. Yep. But the Texas case, I mean, is directly on point, right? Gang house, multiple subjects inside. They arrest the subject on the front porch. One officer looks through the window, sees a gun, like a rifle inside the house. They push into the house. They, clear the house. And the court said, yeah, you're good. All the same.
They probably saw something in plain view. Is that kind of like why we're talking about it?
Yep. That's why it became an issue.
And actually, that's what happened in Mac too. By the way, they went into the garage to sweep it for dangerous people, and they saw the stolen property in plain view. So look, but again, we go back to the level of intrusion, right? I mean, being in the backyard versus being in the kitchen, being already present in the house and doing that sweep. Would you agree is going to be a little easier to justify than entering the home and never intending to enter it in the first place, right? Yeah. But entering because of a safety issue. I'm just telling you, right, because we teach articulation. And I love how you just said there is no officer safety recognition. I mean, we can call it that, but it isn't such thing. That used to be 1981 type police talk, right? It's the same thing when cops would thump on somebody. I shouldn't say that, thump on them, but they would use force on somebody, and they would just use the suspect was non-compliant. Any other questions? And those days are over, right, John?
Absolutely. The idea of less is more is no longer the way we can operate.
Yep. That is the case, Sean. That is the case. Ryburn versus Huff. So, all right. The final case I want to talk to you about, John, and this is actually from California. So let's imagine that a student of yours asked you in this class. Would you know the answer? This officer asks. Actually, another officer. Okay. So
And so if we are in the situation in California where this guy's a parolee, I can search with no basis. Agreed?
That's correct.
And
In
so,
California.
so yeah, so now the question, so I can search the phone, right? Yes. Okay.
Correct.
Yes. In California.
Correct.
So then the question becomes, can I compel him to use his fingerprint to unlock the phone? Right. And that's the question, right? Is that compulsion, or is that a
my boy John. But you do have a beautiful mind, and that was some pretty cool shit you just came up with there, because that case is not new, and it's also not a U.S. Supreme Court case. And I know case you're talking about, but I would not in a million years have remembered that case, that name of that case. But that's awesome.
That's a good one, man. It's a good one.
It's a very good one, that foregone conclusion stuff. Hey, when we walk together, Sean, we are East and West Law. Now we just need a North and South. All right, that was probably a dumb joke too. All right, it's like a dad joke. All right, so guys, that's all we got for you. I got to head up and see the family. I'm heading out tomorrow, and you're heading. I'm heading to Chicago, and you're heading home, right? Right. You going home tomorrow?
Sure am.
All right. So great work out there. I've heard great things for your class out there. So thanks for keeping up the great work. And where are you heading next week? Are you flying out next week?
Going back to Texas.
Where?
Lakeway.
Lakeway. Where's that near? What airport are you going to?
Austin.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, keep Austin weird. Okay, cool. So Sean has a gift for you. He'll give it to me, and I'll sell on eBay, whatever it is.
Oh.
I'll make sure you get it, Johnny.
Is it Lakewood, Richard? Am I dropping the ball here?
I didn't mean to put you on a spot like that. Let me see.
Oh, it's awkward.
Lakeway. No, it's Lakeway. It's Lakeway.
Wait,
It's Lakeway.
Richard, get out.
Yeah, I mean, why are you calling Ricky's? We both don't say appropriate things. Okay. All right, guys. That's it. That's all we have for you. Thank you, John. I really do appreciate you coming here. I know it's like a little bit last minute to get you on here. And we do appreciate you. So thanks, Sean. Thanks, Mom. I think you're like a surrogate son, by the way, John. You're the son that she always wanted, by the way.
It's an honor.
It is an honor. Yeah. All right. She makes a mean TV dinner too. So, all right, guys. Thank you. We'll see you guys next week. I'm going to stop the recording. John, thank you again.